Welcome to Driving.ca. I'm Jay Canna and I'm with the all-new Mazda CX-90 flagship vehicle. There's a lot of numbers, so follow along with me. There's two different options right off the top. You can get a plug-in hybrid, which is what this is, and you can also get an inline-six turbocharged engine. Within that turbocharged engine, there are two different options. You can get a high output or you can get a regular output. You can get seating for 6, you can get seating for 7, and you can get seating for 8, depending on the trim that you choose. And all in all, there are 10 different variants of the CX-90 that are available. I think it's a smart approach that Mazda's taken here by giving something for almost everybody's tastes and lifestyle needs by offering the 10 different trims, 3 different engines, and 2 different overall variants of the CX-90. I'm going to give you my driving impressions of the plug-in hybrid as well as the high output turbocharged inline-six. This video is going to focus on the driving impressions since we've done a very deep dive into the interior and exterior of the CX-90, which you can also find on our website Driving.ca. So with that, let's jump into the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle first and then the inline turbo 6, and let's go for a drive. Let's start off with the plug-in hybrid variant. So some power numbers, it's a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, and it's run through Mazda's e-Skyactiv all-new 8-speed automatic transmission. Now there is a 17.8 kilowatt per hour battery, and that's good for up to 42 kilometers of electric range. On the power side, depending on what kind of gas you put in, you get different numbers. So on 87 octane, which is the regular octane, you get 319 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque. You bump that up to the 93 octane, and that gets you an extra 4 horsepower for a total of 323, and your torque figures stay the same at 369. Quick touch on charging before we get into driving impressions. On a level 1 charger, which is just your basic household plug at home, it's 6.4 hours to fully charge the battery, and if you use a level 2 charger, that comes down to 1.3 hours. So you can really plug this in overnight and end up with a full up to 42 kilometers of range every morning when you wake up and get going. Mazda gives you the opportunity to store your electric power with the touch of a button. It's at the top left of the gear selector, and it'll say EV mode canceled if you're in EV mode and you press it. And basically what that does is it stores all of the power created as you drive and lets you use your EV on demand. So if you like using EV power on highways, you can do that. If you want to use it on city streets and that's your preference, you can absolutely do that. And it's kind of a cool way to self-charge the vehicle. So if you don't want to plug it in and you're running around the city or just doing whatever you have to do with your CX-90, it self-charges, and if you need to plug it in at the end of the night or whenever you're done whatever you're doing, you could also do that to get back to a full charge. The fuel consumption number provided by Mazda Canada is 9.4 liters per 100 kilometers, and that's their combined figure. The city and highway split haven't been fully published yet. When they do, they'll be updated in the article, but 9.4 is pretty impressive, and if you flip it to the liters/E per 100 kilometers with the plug-in hybrid, that turns out to be 4.2. So impressive numbers for a vehicle that weighs a little more than 5,000 pounds or 2,344 kilograms to have fuel figures in the single digits. And I'm not sure a lot of the other competitors are able to do that. And kudos to Mazda for giving us a 3-row crossover that is a plug-in hybrid electric version. With the all-new 8-speed automatic transmission, it does surprisingly well. And usually transmissions that are 6 gears, 7 gears, 8 gears, even up to 10 gears, they can get a little muddy in the lower range. So sometimes between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, the gearbox in a lot of other vehicles just aren't quite as crisp. But what Mazda's done here is create an impressive 8-speed transmission. And for the plug-in hybrid version that I'm driving, it hasn't been muddy at all. The 8 gears have been easy to go up through and go down through. And it really helps as far as getting some really strong fuel consumption numbers on the lower side, again in the single digits, and it gets you up to speed fairly quickly. And at no moment when I was getting on the freeways here did I have any kind of hesitation moment, or I'm not really sure if the car is going to gear up as quick as I wanted to. It's very responsive, and that's a trademark Mazda characteristic, where even on their CX-5 and the current CX-9, which is due for extinction fairly soon, they drive more like a car than they do a large crossover. And I'm happy to see Mazda's engineers have carried that forward here in the CX-90. And Yes, it's a three-row crossover, and yes, it's a large vehicle as far as its physical footprint goes, but on the roads for the plug-in hybrid version, it feels just sporty enough. And I know no one's buying this to take it to the track or to see how fast they can go with it or to beat anybody off the line. But if you do want a little bit of flair for the performance side in your plug-in hybrid crossover, the Mazda CX-90 has done a terrific job in executing that. There's a fully digital instrument cluster, and it's laid out so cleanly. 3 large dials. It doesn't skimp out on your information. And the most important dial is going to be the one on the far right, where that is how much gas is left in your tank and how much charge is left in your battery. The gas tank side is on the right side of the right dial, and the battery side is on your left. And again, it's a large dial, so there's no squinting. There's no putting your head down longer than you have to see just how much charge or how much gas you have left. And on the far left side, you have your, it's not quite a real tachometer as to what we're used to. It's your typical plug-in hybrid kind of tachometer, where the left side ends up being your charge if you put the brakes on, and your right side, as far as the dial goes itself, is how much power you're exuding from the vehicle. So what's the CX-90 plug-in hybrid like to drive? Well, it's pretty good. A little bit of body roll, but that's due to the weight of the vehicle. Now, the impressive thing is Mazda's kinetic system, and they put it on the 2023 Mazda MX-5. They're a tiny little roadster, and they've carried that forward here. And the short version as to what the kinetic posture control does is it helps keep you planted as you go through twists and turns. And I don't think anybody's going to be whipping this around turns and putting this thing sideways and drifting it. But as far as North American roads go, there are twists and turns and bends, whether it be getting on a highway, on city streets, or even on rural streets. And I find that through the twisty, turny drives that I've done for the morning so far, the kinetic posture control has performed incredibly well. No complaints. And it's nice to see technology that Mazda created for their smallest offering also appear in their largest offering. I'm getting on the freeway, so it's a great time to show you just how good the plug-in hybrid variant is. A little bit of road noise, but you can hear it's going up and through the gears without any issues at all, and I'm at my highway speed right there. I'm not doing any speeding, I'm not going any faster than I need to be, I'm not going over the speed limit. So it's just a good way to show the power that the Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid has. And again, with up to 323 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, it's really what the torque does, and it does it so well as far as getting you up to speed quickly with very little issues, if any issues at all. The plug-in hybrid comes in 3 different trims. There's GS, GSL, and GT, and you can get it either in 8 seats or 7 seats depending on how you want to get yours configured. I think this will make a pretty big dent as far as options go for those looking for a 3-row crossover. Right now, Mazda is the only real one. Nothing against the Mitsubishi Outlander, but their 3rd row really isn't anything like what we have here as far as space and functionality goes. So it goes back to Mazda being that premium brand and living in a league of their own. I'm in normal mode right now, and with a quick tap of the switch, I'm now in EV mode. I get this cute little graphic that's on the screen, and it's a much quieter drive. Not that it was loud to begin with, but anything electrified has that beautiful silence. It's a smooth passing experience, and it's a quiet passing experience as well. And I'm going to put it back into normal. And what I'm going to do is hit that EV button where it says EV mode canceled, because I want to store as much of the EV range as possible. I like using my EV range on city streets, so I'll see the range go up and up and up. Right now it's a little under 3/4 right now, and by the time I'm off the freeway and back on the city streets, it should be at the full 100%, or the 42 kilometers. A quick thing I want to point out is that as I do this test drive on the all-new CX-90, keep in mind it's just me in the vehicle. And if you're buying this vehicle, or at least having it on your consideration list, you'll have more than one person in the vehicle. You'll have extra added weight. So your performance feel will be different than what mine is, because again, I have myself, some camera gear, and that's pretty much it. And a quick note as well, as far as capability goes, the plug-in hybrid version can tow up to 3,500 pounds, whereas some of the equipped turbo inline-sixes can tow up to 5,000 pounds. As I go around the twists and turns here in Northern California, I find that there's not really a lot of oversteer or understeer, which is pretty surprising given the size of this vehicle, but it goes back to Mazda's strong driving dynamics that they have through their entire lineup, whether it's the MX-5, Mazda 3, CX-5, CX-50, and what we have here with the CX-90. The cabin is extremely well designed, lots of premium materials here, and that follows the theme of what Mazda does. They're not a mainstream brand, and they're certainly not a luxury brand. They've carved out this nice niche where it's really only them in the market, and it's affordability blended with premium materials and very high quality materials. And in this plug-in hybrid version, and I'm in the GT trim, which is the top trim out of the three that are available, there's a lot of nice touches here. There's a lot of simplicity. Again, fully digital instrument cluster, nice large infotainment screen, still has the HMI commander, a very small gear selector, so you have a little more space up front here. Drive controls are tucked right up front, so they're not in the way. No one's going to hit them by accident and surprise the driver. You get wireless charging here, and beautiful, beautiful leather seats that are also comfortable four ways as far as your lumbar support goes, and your typical movements as far as higher end power seats go. And it's just a really nice place to be. And Mazda's still hung on to their 3-spoke steering wheel. And a small little gripe I have is Mazda still hasn't heated the entire steering wheel. It was a little cold this morning, so I put the heated steering wheel on, and only the left side and right side get heated. But if that's my only complaint about the interior, then that is completely fine. Your center storage container is a butterfly opening, so you don't have to open the entire thing. You can go left side or you can go right side, so you don't intrude on your driver's right arm. Helps them keep both hands on the wheel as long as possible. You get some really, really nice materials as far as what's on the door, what's on the dash. Interestingly, Mazda has gone heavy on the buttons as far as the HVAC goes, and a lot of their other vehicles, the first one that comes to mind is the Mazda 3, has a very minimalistic HVAC system, and it's just a couple of buttons. What they have here is a whole row of small buttons. It's very well laid out, because on the bookends you have your temperature control for whether you want it hotter or whether you want it colder, as well as your sync button. And in the middle of that is a digital screen letting you know where the air is going, what the temperature is, and that long strip of buttons below. It looks like a lot. It's a little intimidating at first glance, but it's laid out pretty strategically. So, heated steering wheel on the left, heated seat, cool seats is what we have here on the top trim. Then you get to your fan speeds, ons, offs, and direction of the air. A lot of other manufacturers have a heavy reliance, and in fact an over-reliance, on forcing drivers to use a touchscreen with doing 100 kilometers an hour to change the direction of their air or to control the temperature of the air. So I'm really happy that Mazda's gone smart here. It helps keep your eyes where they need to be, which is on the road, instead of off to the right, staring at a screen, digging through menus. The CX-90 performs well in urban situations, whether you're using your sport mode, normal, or EV. It gets around quite nicely. It's easier to park than you think, despite it being a full-size three-row crossover. And yes, there's a 360-degree camera. There's also that under camera view, which is seen on luxury vehicles, so I'm happy that Mazda's decided to put it in here. On the highway, it picks up very quickly. You get at the speed with hardly any issues at all. Now, I haven't noticed any issues in the couple of hours that I've been driving it. The plug-in hybrid variant has performed very well for me. I'm now in the 3.3-liter inline-six turbo, and this is the top trim signature. Now, the gasoline version comes in 5 trims: GS, GSL, GT, GTP, and signature. And there's a few different power numbers. So with the lower 3, which are the GS, GSL, and GT, it's still a 3.3-liter inline-six, and it's got a 48-volt mild hybrid system, and it's turbocharged. Power figures are 280 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. Opt for the GTP or the signature trim, and on 87 octane, that gets you 319 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. Put in 93 octane, and that number goes all the way up to 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. So the GTP and signature, Mazda calls them their high output engines. So I'm not sure how the split's going to go between the non-high output and the high output. I feel the high output engine does more than enough. Now, I haven't driven the normal output. Mazda hasn't made it available at their launch right now, but I imagine it'll be still more than adequate for what your needs are in the world of a three-row crossover. Now, what I can speak to is how well this engine performs. It's a heavy vehicle. It's 2,344 kilos, a little over 5,100 pounds, so it's a heavy vehicle, and it needs as much as it can without going into overkill territory to get it up and running and moving, whether it's from a standstill, whether it's finding your power band, whether it's avoiding a collision situation or getting onto a highway/freeway. The high output engine does it with ease. There's not really much hesitation. Now, Mazda uses an 8-speed automatic for all CX-90s. The gasoline version uses an 8-speed automatic, just like the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. And similarly to that, but with an exclamation point on it, it has Mazda's delightful driving characteristics to it, where I'm not saying it's going to drive as nimble as a Mazda 3 does, for example, but you definitely don't feel like it's a full three-row crossover when you're in the driver's seat. It does have some agility to it, and it does have Mazda's kinetic posture control, and that just keeps you planted. So as I go through a couple of twists and turns here, I don't feel like I'm sliding out of my seat at all. I'm just with the natural movement and twists and turns of the vehicle. There's no issues at all here. So I'm happy, as I said, in the plug-in hybrid version, that Mazda's taken technology for their sports car/roadster, which is their smallest offering, and put it in their largest offering. And just as you can see my hands go doing the twists and turns, and you can see what's going on through the rear window as well as the side window. It doesn't feel like the rear end is sliding out at all. I'm in full control of the vehicle. Now, I'm not flying down California roads, but I am going the speed limit, which is 35 on a descent. So making sure that you're in full control all the time is really important, and the CX-90 is doing it with ease. Again, I don't feel like there's a lot of oversteer, understeer. I'm pointing the nose where I want it to go, and it's doing it very well. With the gasoline version, you get 3 different seating options. You can have an 8-seater, you can have a 7-seater, or you can have a 6-seater. The top trim signature is the only configuration that offers 6 seats. The rest are either 8 or 7, depending on what you want for trim. If you opt for the gasoline version over the plug-in hybrid, one benefit is you get a little more cargo space because there's no battery on the floor. So that's something to consider if you are looking for a CX-90 with a primary driver being cargo space. Acceleration from slower speeds, for example getting onto a highway/freeway, are done extremely easily here. Now again, I have the high output engine, and the torque kicks in at 2,000 RPM, so it's a fairly low engagement point, and it really just lifts off and goes. I can't speculate on what the normal output is going to feel like. You know, I imagine it'll be close. There's still going to be a separation with it, and the torque figure is what I really want to drill down on. High output has 369 pound-feet of torque, and the normal output has 332, which is still a healthy and pretty hefty number, so it'll get you going. Now, a lot of people focus on horsepower, and I feel incorrectly. It's the torque figure that you really want to look at, especially when you're looking at how quickly the vehicle accelerates and how much responsiveness you have beneath your right foot. The normal drive mode does fairly well, and I feel that's where a lot of people will live. You're not really buying a CX-90 to track it. You're not going to race anybody off the line with it. But with a vehicle full of stuff and things and people, you're going to want to have some kind of respectable acceleration. And as I'd been in the plug-in hybrid by myself, I'm in here by myself as well. And the response has been fairly strong in normal. When I flip it up to sport mode through the selector at the top left of the gear selector area, it really amplifies things. And I noticed it quite a bit in the plug-in hybrid, and I notice it that much more in the 3.3 inline turbo 6. And let's take a listen. So it feels pretty good, and there's not really a lot of noise that bleeds in from the engine into the cabin. I know there's going to be a little bit, but Mazda's done a pretty solid job as far as insulating the cabin, giving you a nice quiet atmosphere. Yes, there's a premium Bose audio system you can crank up if you feel there's too much noise from the road bleeding in. Fuel consumption is impressive given the size and power of the engine here. So with the regular output, we're at 9.9 liters per 100 kilometers in the city, 8.4 on the highway, and a blended total of 9.3. With the high output, it goes up a little bit, but not that much. It's 10.3 on city streets, 8.5 on the highway, and a blended total of 9.5. So that's only 0.2 liters of difference between the high output and normal. And for me, the impressive part is that it's under 10. Again, for a turbocharged engine for an inline-six, and given the weight of the vehicle, so well done, Mazda. So the GS and the GSL are fairly well equipped, and with a GSL you can get the enhanced package, which lets you get 7 seats, gives you a power moonroof and the power tailgate as well. The GT is where a lot of the value starts kicking in. You get a 360-degree camera, you get a driver monitor, you get forward cross traffic alert, you get adaptive lighting. You get 7 seats, and you get wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, 21-inch wheels, signature lighting from Mazda, a 12-speaker Bose audio system, leather seats, and heated second row of seats. If you opt to go for the signature trim, right at the top, that gets you a 12.3-inch infotainment screen, Napa leather, a maple wood trim. You get a cooled second row of seats, and you get the facial recognition software, which comes in through a tiny camera at the top left of the infotainment screen, and it just recognizes your face and it sets your settings to exactly what you want them to be. Pretty impressive there. You get a power tilt and telescopic steering wheel, and you get a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. So there's a lot of options, lots to be had depending on how much or how little you want as far as technology and the finer things go in the Mazda CX-90. While this is Mazda's first CX-90, what they have been able to tell me is they're forecasting 25% of sales to be the plug-in hybrid, with the remaining 75 being the gasoline mild hybrid system. It's hard to say because it's their first one, but what I think is going to happen is, based off the CX-9, where 50% of the volume came from the top 2 trims, I think there'll be a healthy number of people who go for the GTP and Signature, but I think a lot of them will probably end up in the world of the GT, where it's mid-trim, but I think more than the GS and the GSL trims. There's a lot of competition on the market. Toyota's Grand Highlander is coming up very, very soon. There is the existing Highlander, but there's a reason there's going to be a Grand Highlander. There is the Telluride, there is the Palisade, there's the Pilot, there's the Ascent, the Explorer, the Atlas, Pathfinder, Sorento. So there's a lot happening, but the advantage Mazda has is they don't really compete with any of them directly, because again, they're in that really specialized niche market which they've made for themselves, and if that's what's working for them, and it has been as far as I'm concerned, I think it's going to keep working for them by offering a gasoline with a mild hybrid powertrain as well as a plug-in hybrid powertrain. If I had to pick a CX-90 between the mild hybrid system, which is what I have here, and the plug-in hybrid, which is what I drove earlier, for my specific lifestyle, I would go for the plug-in hybrid. Up to 42 kilometers of all-electric range. You can store the range. So yes, you would need to charge it at some point, but if you do enough driving, you just have that energy created and stored, and it's really on demand. And to me, that's the best way to do it. I don't mind that the power figures are lower compared to what I have here in the 3.3 inline-six turbo. If I want something that has 3 rows and I'm moving a lot of people on a lot of things, I want to have the best fuel consumption possible, and I'm going to get that through the plug-in hybrid system. Everybody's different. Everybody will have different driving styles, and you have different weight in the vehicle. And there's so many different factors for fuel consumption. As far as Natural Resources Canada's rating of 9.4 liters per 100 kilometers, that's enough for me to pick the plug-in hybrid variant over the gasoline version. Overall, on the driving dynamics side, the CX-90 does very well. It's got healthy power figures, both on the horsepower and torque. It's got an all-new engine with the 3.3 inline turbocharged 6. It's got their first ever plug-in hybrid system. Yes, the 42 kilometers isn't going to be for everybody, but I think it's a great place to start. It's enough to do your errands in and around the city. And again, that storage option as far as accumulating your electric range and hanging on to it and making it on demand, that's a very, very big, impressive spot for me. The fit and finish is wonderful. You can go all the way to the top trim signature and absolutely get the finer things, but the GS and the GSL are certainly no slouch as far as materials go. It's still a well-crafted cabin with premium materials, and it follows the Mazda way. You've got great driving dynamics. It doesn't feel like a three-row crossover here. It looks like one. It parks like one as far as the real estate it takes up, but behind the wheel, I don't feel that there's 3 full rows behind me. After spending the day driving the plug-in hybrid version of the Mazda CX-90 and this 3.3-liter inline-six turbo engine, Mazda's gone out with the old, being the CX-9, and in with the Zoom. And these two powertrains, well, 2.5 if you count the high output version, have a remarkable impact on the very crowded segment. A lot of the other three-row crossovers don't have power figures as strong as these, and they don't have the driving dynamics that the Mazda CX-90 has. As Mazda's been doing for the past several years, they've carved their own specific lane, not quite mainstream, not quite luxury. They're a high premium brand, and between the craftsmanship, the design, the materials, and the general upscale feel of the CX-90, I think they've got a real winner on their hands. And more importantly, they're trying to cater to everybody, which is generally not the smart approach, but I think it's going to work here for Mazda. Between the 2.5/3 powertrains, the two different options between the plug-in hybrid and the gasoline turbo mild hybrid, and 10 variants in total, I think there really is going to be some kind of CX-90 iteration for almost every three-row crossover shopper. If the history of the CX-9 has taught us anything, it's that Mazda buyers want higher-end trims, with the Signature and GT for the CX-9 accounting for 50% of the sales. Now, yes, the CX-9 and CX-90 will live side by side for a few months. Once the CX-90 takes over, I feel the majority of buyers will hover around middle to the higher trims. Yes, the entry-level trims are important, but I think where Mazda's CX-90 really shines is in the GT, the Signature, and the GTP trims, whether it be the high output engine or not. If you've got any questions on the 2024 Mazda CX-90, let us know in the comments. We're always happy to hear from you. Connect with us on our social media platforms. We're always happy to engage in respectful comments. And for more news, reviews, and information you can use on three-row crossovers, visit our website at Driving.ca. For Driving.ca, I'm Jay Canna.